As we've been reporting, President Trump visited California Saturday. He toured areas destroyed by deadly wildfires. At an incident command post in Chico, the president was asked whether seeing the devastation had changed his opinion on climate change.
Seeing this devastation, though, change your opinion at all on climate change, Mr. President?
No. I have a strong opinion. I want great climate. We're going to have that, and we're going to have forests that are very safe. Because we can't go through this every year. We go through this, and we're going to have safe forests, and that's happening as we speak.
California's outgoing Governor Jerry Brown has made global warming a signature issue over his tenure. On Face the Nation, moderator Margaret Brennan asked him about the president's comments.
So there's an atmospheric element, which is part of the natural cycle, and then there is an increasing effect of climate change. In fact, I have read specifically peer-reviewed scientific articles that say that the amount of land burnt in California over the last 15 years has doubled because of climate change.
Did you make that case to President Trump?
I certainly raised it, but I didn't feel that that was where we needed to go. We need the money, we need federal help, and we need a collaborative and cooperative spirit, and we're getting that. But I did say that we're going to look at all the elements that are causing these fires over time, and we're going to work in a way to let science be our guide. And the president in no way negated that, so I decided to go for an opening, and I think over the next months and years, you'll see the science becoming crystal clear, and even the folks in Washington that are now more in the denialist camp are going to come around.
And joining me now from Washington is the moderator of Face the Nation and CBS News senior foreign affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan. So, Margaret, how did the governor navigate his differences of opinion with the president during his trip?
Well, you heard Governor Brown say, first and foremost, the focus was on continuing aid and federal funding to California. He said President Trump said, "I've got your back," and that will continue, even though earlier in a tweet he had threatened a week ago to cut off that federal funding. It seems they've put some of those disagreements aside in order to alleviate this devastation in this state that is the 5th largest economy in the world and has a huge impact on the rest of this country, health-wise and economically. You did hear Governor Brown say that in their conversations, he said personally he remained convinced that climate change was one factor, one of many, but a factor in why these fires have been spreading so quickly. The actual ignition of them, he said, that remains under investigation. But what he described was really a change to life that needs to happen in the state of California, even describing the need to build underground shelters if you live near a forest.
I know, really such profound images of devastation out of that state. Margaret, I also want to ask you about your conversation with Senator Rand Paul. You talked about the CIA assessment that the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman ordered the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. What action does Senator Paul think the Trump administration should be taking?
Well, for Senator Paul, who has long been a critic of intervention and has long been raising concerns about the brutality and the civilian death toll, the war in Yemen that Saudi is carrying out with U.S. support in terms of logistics, up until recently refueling, for him, this is a consistent position that that the kingdom needs to be reined in. The CIA assessment that the Crown Prince, who is also the defense minister, may have had a direct role in ordering this killing, really raised the senator's concerns that much further. He's saying basically the Trump administration isn't being tough enough with these 17 individuals they've sanctioned. He says that's useless. Many of them are behind bars already, and the man who is responsible, in his view, remains unscathed. He's calling for he's calling for a halt to arms sales, Senator Paul is, but he acknowledged, look, the administration's not even asking for arms sales right now. So even though he thinks he could get Congress a veto-proof majority to stop any transaction, the administration's not giving them a chance to do so. So essentially, this boils down to Congress weighing whether they want to move forward with any kind of further sanctions or restrictions on Saudi Arabia, because the president continues to say that the economic benefit gained from selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, the largest buyer of U.S.-made weapons, is worth anything, essentially.
Well, because in the past, in fact, as you know, the Trump administration has put a lot of focus on building relations with Saudi Arabia. What is the political reality, Margaret, for the Trump administration? What kind of position is the president in? Is there any kind of potential political consequence if he continues sort of as status quo?
Frankly, no. Up until now, there has been no political cost for the continued alliance with Saudi Arabia. In fact, alliance that there is militarily, that there is on the intelligence side, is so key, not just to this president's Mideast strategy, but President Obama's Mideast strategy. President Obama was no fan and was really frustrated with a lot of the kingdom's behavior, but wasn't able to sever an alliance that is so central to American national security because of shared intelligence and other things like that. So time and again, President Bush, President Obama, President Trump have looked at some very uncomfortable things in terms of the behavior of leadership of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on human rights level, but really none so in your face as you are seeing right now with the Crown Prince and the CIA assessment that he may have personally ordered an execution of a journalist who was living on U.S. soil. That's really in your face, and that is why Congress is saying this time it can't be overlooked. You had Senator Joni Ernst say to me off camera she also thought more needed to be done. Let's see what happens.
Incredibly sobering assessment. Let me ask you about domestic politics. As Democrats prepare to lead the House next year, you spoke with Congressman Elijah Cummings, who is expected to lead the House Oversight Committee. What are his priorities going to be?
He gave a long list of things that he wants to look into if, as expected, he takes over this powerful position. And what comes with it is subpoena power, right? That's what makes it so powerful. He can force certain issues. One of the things that he said remains a priority for him is essentially the public's right to know, he believes, when it comes to the Mueller probe. Whatever the findings are when they are turned into the Department of Justice, he thinks those should be made public. He didn't go so far as to promise to use subpoena power to force that. But he also talked about a number of things in terms of the financial transactions on behalf of the president and his family members, in terms of this census that is being put together and whether or not a question of citizenship should be inserted within it, something that is actually going to be argued around at the Supreme Court. So Democrats here are going to, when they're in the majority come January, really have a number of issues they're going to hit the administration on.
Well, earlier this week, Congressman Cummings brokered a meeting between House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi and her potential rival for Speaker Marcia Fudge. Could we see the Congresswoman challenge Pelosi?
Well, you heard the congressman on this program again assert his firm support for current leader, presumed Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He was very supportive of her, so it didn't seem that he was engineering something there. He said when it comes to leadership, he's pleased. There's always more diversity that can be there, and he believes Nancy Pelosi is going to push that. And there had been speculation that Marcia Fudge might run to contest that speakership, but so far, no one's jumping in. And as presumed Speaker Pelosi says, water's warm. She's waiting for a challenger.
All right, we'll be watching it closely. Margaret Brennan in Washington for us. Margaret, thank you.